What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. It's Friday, which means we got the weekend right around the corner, but one more day of work to get through. We do have a few things to talk about, including Dragon Ball FighterZ apparently having loot boxes. We'll get to that one and kind of clear that confusion up. And then we found out the NPD results. They were released yesterday. We'll go through those because one system in particular kind of surprised me and I think everybody else, and it's not the Switch. And then we're also going to talk a little more about the Labo from Nintendo because more details have come out since we talked about them yesterday morning. So let's get started. So since we left off with the Labo from Nintendo, which was the cardboard set, I guess that everyone calls it, you can buy them with the game and then you can build things like a robot, a piano, the fishing rod, the bike, a lot of stuff you can build with it. And we kind of left off after going through a lot of the information, but there was one piece of information that turns out to be false, and IGN France actually did a full retraction on it. You cannot apparently download the schematics and print your own out, according to them, from Nintendo. You still need to buy the set and get the game like normal. Now, there will still be apparently replacement sets sold, but they won't be separately. Those are plans for that, but they won't be like you can print them out and do it yourself completely. I'm not really sure where the confusion came in for that one because the more I think about it, the more it makes sense for them not to do that since they probably make a lot of money on the cardboard that they're selling with the game for $80 and $70. So I don't know why they would let you print them out and do it yourself. Although, don't be surprised if people figure it out, trace it even, and just come up with a way for you to print these out yourself and just do them. If Nintendo won't do it, I'm sure other people will. From there, we also found out that, well, the investors love the Labo set, apparently the whole series. There's a massive amount of potential according to them, and the stocks went up quite a bit, over 2%, about 2.36%. Nintendo stock currently up 3.73% at the Tokyo Stock Exchange, all coming from Dr. Sirkin Toto on Twitter. And of course, it also topped the Amazon sales charts for pre-orders, coming in with the robot and the variety pack at number 1 and 2. Not surprising, I guess, since Nintendo is pretty good at selling stuff to people, and, well, it was so different and unique, I guess, everybody wanted it. This was definitely enough to push it well up to the top of the Amazon sales charts, above, like, the gift cards. Usually gift cards, like, whether it's the PlayStation Network cards, or eShop cards, or Microsoft Points cards, or, I guess, just dollar cards now. Those are usually some of the top when it comes to gaming, just gaming category in general, but here come the Labo kits 1 and 2. There you go. And then one last bit of news that was pretty funny was that the German ratings board went ahead and told us on Twitter that their cleaning crew almost threw out the Labo because they thought it was trash. I mean, it looks like a bunch of cardboard. I guess they just took it and were thinking about just throwing it in the dumpster, and I guess they were stopped. But apparently the ratings board is not used to getting cardboard in the mail to check out with the other games they get. I get a big surprise, I guess. All right, now with the Labo talk out of the way, let's jump into the news from yesterday, which include the NPD results. Now, if you don't know, the NPD covers all of the United States when it comes to gaming sales with hardware and software. And you're going to see the charts here. Initially, these come from Matt Pescatella, who is very awesome on YouTube. He goes through all of this stuff in a great way. I'll leave a link actually to the video where he goes through all of the NPD results. You're going to see the charts here. December 2017 saw the hardware units for the Nintendo Switch top the charts. Hardware spend was with Nintendo Switch. Game title units and spend went to Call of Duty WW2. And software publisher for, I guess, money pulled in was Nintendo. That could have been things like, also keep in mind, that could also be things like, I guess, Ubisoft or Sony or anyone else who publishes games in that month. And then you also see with the hardware units of all of 2017, the PlayStation 4 was the best selling when it came to units in 2017. Keep in mind, it also had, a 2-month head start on the Switch. That makes a pretty good amount of sense there, I think. Hardware spend also to the PS4. Game title units, Call of Duty WW2. Game title spend, Call of Duty WW2. And then software publisher overall, Activision Blizzard. Now overall, gaming grew 10% year on year, so it has done nothing but grow moving forward, which a lot of that, according to them, it has to do with the Switch actually being relevant as opposed to the Wii U last year, which was not relevant at all, even in December and then January. And then, of course, when we get into March, we'll actually be comparing Switch numbers to previous Switch numbers. So that's when at least NPDs will be a little more interesting, but we pretty much anticipate growth even in the following month for January just because the Switch exists. Now, with that, let's talk about something that really surprised, I think, everyone at this point, because a lot of people are calling for Nintendo to leave this system. Now, Nintendo decided decided to release a press release, essentially, all about the numbers, because again, when you do this, usually that means you've essentially sold the best in that month, and Nintendo, well, they absolutely did. In fact, they accounted for, according to them, more than half of all game sales completely when it came to video games, or at least hardware sales in this case. So the Switch, Super Nintendo Classic, and the 3DS, guys, is a beast still. Altogether, 2.6 million. That accounts for more than half of all hardware spend in December. So the Switch was 1.5 million, and the 3DS, 750,000 units in December, which is up 27% from last December. So the 3DS has actually grown from the previous December, which probably could be for Pokemon, but we had a Pokemon game last December as well, so you can kind of rule that out a bit. And this is a system that people are asking Nintendo to leave. I don't know how you leave a system when it's continuing to sell that well. I mean, it's doing well. It didn't come in like any of the top 3 spots or anything. It was probably still 4th place, because I know the Xbox One sold better than that, because it was number 2, and the PS4 definitely sold better than that. But I don't really know how you leave a system that sells 750,000 in December and has eclipsed 70 million in its install base. This is tough for Nintendo to want to leave that. Third parties definitely don't want to leave the 3DS, obviously, but they still want to go to the Switch. They kind of want to walk this line where they keep the 3DS relevant long enough to where the Switch has a large enough install base where they feel okay jumping from one to the other. So I think the 3DS will be around definitely through 2018, maybe at the start of 2019 or mid-2019 they cut it off. But I'd be shocked if any of the third parties, and even Nintendo themselves, are ready to leave the 3DS, because it's still selling. People are still buying. I mean, it sold 50% of what the Switch sold, but 3DS has been out for a while, like 6 years. Yeah, so I don't know why you leave it, but I want to know what you guys have to say about this, because I know a lot of Switch owners want Nintendo to stop putting games on the 3DS because they want it on the Switch, which has the option for TV, and of course the better looking screen and the more powerful console compared to the 3DS. But man, that install size, it has to be tempting. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think it's time for Nintendo to finally jump from the 3DS completely and go to the Switch, let third parties have that system, continue to sell the system, and just move all resources to the Switch? Or do you think Nintendo should release some more, maybe smaller Nintendo games? I mean, they did all right with Mario Party, even though a lot of people didn't like it, the top 100, but stuff like that, right? I mean, I don't think they'll release another Pikmin or Animal Crossing for it, but they could probably dive into their archives, come up with something new for it, and release it on, I mean, an install base of 70 million. You're going to sell couple copies. Next up, let's talk about these Dragon Ball FighterZ loot boxes. I know we all hear loot boxes, and it is a bad thing generally. We get really annoyed, frustrated. Oh, we got to go through this whole gambling thing, possibly including, whenever you hear loot boxes, you always think of real money. That's, I think, the real problem. When real money can be invested into it, people get really turned off by it, get really annoyed by it. Even cosmetic stuff, while I'm less annoyed by that, I can still see why people would be annoyed by this, since people can get all the cool stuff by putting more money in. And when we find out that Dragon Ball FighterZ has loot boxes, we do automatically assume that there is real money involved, because generally that's why you put loot boxes in. Xenoblade has been one of the few instances that I can remember that you can't put real money in. But here we go with Dragon Ball FighterZ. Over on the Reset Era forums, Dr. Dog managed to get, well, an early copy of it, and he's been playing it. And he found out that, well, he let slip to someone that he got a pretty cool outfit, specifically the one for Piccolo, where they're learning to get their license. You remember that episode? It was kind of a filler episode at the time. It was pretty funny. It was really dumb, but it was kind of that funny episode that didn't make any sense, or why would you get a driver's license so you could fly? I don't know. But anyway, he had the outfit, and he says, look, I got it from a loot box. And now everybody online goes crazy. There's loot boxes in this game. Well, that means that you can put real money in. However, after someone from Kotaku reached out to Bandai, they found this. Just confirmed with Bandai Namco that there is no way to purchase capsules, loot boxes, with real money. It's all in-game currency earned through battles. So I don't mind this at all. I don't mind it in Xenoblade. I don't mind it in Dragon Ball FighterZ. The only concern that I can see here is if they eventually add in the use of real money. They link it to the shop, and then you can use real money, and that's where it gets kind of murky. for a lot of people, right? Because, well, you could use real money to get all this cosmetic stuff, and then what's stopping them from others? Look, I guess cosmetic is the big thing here. At least it's that, but I mean, people are going to start getting tired of loot boxes in general. I kind of am getting to the point where I'm getting a little sick of them too, because they have become the industry norm. We've seen the very, very real side of what loot boxes can do to a game with something like Battlefront 2, where they get a little too greedy with it. And now we're to the point where it's drawn back to where cosmetics seem fine to everyone. And I mean, it wasn't always like that. It wasn't until really, at this point, EA pushed the boundaries so far that we look at a game like this, even if it has real money, and we go, well, at least it's not Battlefront 2, so it seems okay to us. I don't know. I hope they keep the real money out of it. Let's play games like we used to, you know? Let's keep it all in-game, and let's just have some fun. I don't mind loot boxes as much if it's all in-game currency. So we'll see. Dragon Ball FighterZ is out later on this month, and we'll see what happens after release. Next up, let's talk about Aliens. Now, if you don't know, there have been quite a few Aliens games in the past, I would say, what's the past decade now or so? I mean, it's seriously, we're to the point where a decade doesn't even go all the way back to the 360 launch. It's kind of crazy. But if you remember something like Alien Colonial Marines, right? Maybe you remember Alien Isolation. Those were some of the more popular ones. One being more of a horror-style game that everybody really enjoyed. The other one being, well, kind of a bit of false advertisement, as we've seen, where they used things in the trailer to kind of get you on board with buying it, and then you buy it and you realize a lot of that stuff in the trailer was fabricated and it's not even in the game. That's Alien Colonial Marines. Well, apparently Fox is actually going to take another shot at this series with a different studio away from Sega, and they're going to try to revive this series with a new Aliens shooter. Now, Fox Next Games is the video game division of Fox that was formed back in 2017, so less than a year ago or so, and they're pulling in Cold Iron Studios. They acquired them, and they're going to put them on this new Aliens shooter-style game. Cold Iron Studios was formed back in 2015 from members of the teams from Neverwinter and City of Heroes, specifically their CEO and their creative director. So this could be cool if they do it right. Like, seriously, I just can't figure out something like Aliens hasn't had an amazing, like a really good game. It seems like an easy IP, an easy setup to take and make a really cool game out of it. Now, I know some people like Alien Isolation because it actually made you feel helpless against like the single alien that was kind of hunting you the whole time. But something like Alien Colonial Marines was more up the alley of a shooter, and a lot of people just didn't like it. It was very buggy. It didn't work half the time. And again, we had high hopes with that trailer that just ended up not being in the game at all. They've been called out multiple times for it. You really don't have to get into it here. Just search for it on Google. You'll find it. But I would like to see something cool happen here with something like Cold Iron Studios, them getting a shot at this series, something that maybe they're not super used to out of Neverwinter, but hey, a first-person shooter they could probably get into. I mean, it doesn't even say first-person. I guess it could be third-person, but let's see if we can get a good Aliens game. I would really like to see like just a really cool game in that series. In our last bit of news, let's talk about the world of Disgaea. Now, if you played Disgaea 5 on the Switch or the PS4, you've probably been playing it for a while, or hey, maybe that was your first one. That's great. Well, if you haven't been playing it since the PS2 era, you're probably going to be pretty happy because, well, apparently they are remaking Disgaea 1 from the PS2. Now, this was shared by Nippon Ichi on what appeared to be almost like, they've done this before, but it was kind of like their own Nintendo Direct, their own kind of live presentation where they do some weird things on camera, but they talk about a bunch of different games and specifically ones that are coming up. Now, they talked about Disgaea 1 getting a remake, the old one from the PS2, and they're bringing it. They didn't really say when, but it's coming to current consoles, we believe. Now, if I had to take a guess, it'd probably be going to PC, PS4, and Switch. Definitely Switch, because they have pretty much had a commitment at this point to the Switch after seeing how Disgaea 5 sold, so I wouldn't be concerned if you really liked it on the Switch with the portable aspect or anything. I wouldn't be concerned about that. It more than likely is coming to the Switch and the PS4. PC is the one I'd be a little iffy on, but definitely the Switch, definitely the PS4. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about maybe the 3DS. Maybe you're surprised that it did so well on the NPDs. Maybe you're surprised that Nintendo took more than half of all hardware sales in the month of December, a holiday period when everybody is going crazy for systems. Well, I guess they wanted the Switch, Apparently they wanted the 3DS also. I mean, it's pretty insane to see it continue to sell, like, what, 6 years later? 750,000 units. It's still a lot for a system with a 70 million install base. Pretty impressive. And also let me know what you think about Dragon Ball FighterZ. Did you get a little down when you heard about loot boxes? And do you feel better now that it's only in-game currency? Or maybe you're just not a fan of them at all and you just want it to be how it used to be, where you'd get currency, you'd go to the shop in the game and you'd buy stuff. I mean, I guess at least loot boxes add a bit of wonder, but in this case, when you can start using your actual wallet at home and your credit card, you can it gets a little murky there, right? But let me know what you guys think about that and anything else talked about today. Guys, have a great weekend, play some games, get out, have some fun, and I'll see you guys back here Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern time, and I'll see you then.